Hello, listeners. Ooh, it's a spooky edition of Party XP. Ooh, with my ghoulish friend Lakan. I'm Jeff Lakan. How are you today? I couldn't think of a spooky pun. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit disappointed. I was very excited for a spoopy pun on your end.
Nah,
Yeah,
I didn't come prepared.
Well, you had the beginning idea there. You just never fully fleshed out, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing pretty good. I'm over here sipping on some bubble tea, some buble tea.
Yeah.
I'm having a good time. How about you?
Yeah, I'm sipping on Pepsi Zero
Ooh.
sugar.
I've had-
That's about all I've got.
Are you a Pepsi or a Coke guy?
I don't know, man. Whenever I have the choice, I always end up picking Pepsi, but that might just be
Really?
because I always get Mountain Dew with the Pepsi,
Oh,
and
okay.
Coke doesn't have a citrus flavored product that's readily available. So I usually just go for the Pepsi twofer, you know?
So you don't like think of like a Sprite kind of deal? I mean, they're not comparable, right? Sprites to like Sierra Mist.
Yeah, I don't. I think Mountain Dew is in its own category. I think Coke tried to do a Mountain Dew.
Surge.
Well, yeah, no, of course, Surge is
Well,
Surge, but
yeah,
I
it
think
barely
they also
exists,
tried
though.
like, I know, and they also tried like Vault or something. I believe was Coke's
Oh, I think you're right. I think that was
attempt.
that was their thing.
Regardless, though, Surge doesn't come in like a sugar-free or a zero, so I can't drink it without getting nauseous and wanting to die.
No, I get you. I mean, like,
Yeah.
cause like Mountain Dew, like the diet one is like, I actually
Oh,
learned,
Diet Dew sucks complete balls. Mountain Dew Zero
I
is
actually
awesome.
learned about it this year. Apparently, Diet Mountain Dew has a little bit of sugar in it because it still uses orange juice.
Huh.
Like if you ever look at the
More
back,
you learn.
yeah,
More you know.
and that's kind of what that bite is a little bit, like like that extra citrusy flavor. Apparently, Mountain Dew and Diet Mountain Dew actually use real fruit, a little bit of real fruit juice. I mean,
Huh.
I don't think it really matters considering all the other shit they're throwing in there, right?
Correct.
But like, yeah, like apparently that's also what gives it that little bit of extra flavor to it, I guess. But yeah, I do fuck with the Mountain Dew Zero heavy.
Yeah, Mountain Dew
And
Zero is great.
also Mountain Dew Baja Blast Zero. I know those are a little hard to find because I think those are like a summer thing only, right?
It is. It's a seasonal item.
Yeah. So, but when I see them in the summer and I see the Mountain Dew Baja Blast in like a bottle, and then I see a zero, I'm like,
Instant grab.
yeah, I'll always buy one of those and just kind of toss them in my fridge and have it ready for me. You know what I mean?
Instant grab.
I've had have the argument with myself of like, do I just buy a crate of this and just live like a DGen and just save it for throughout the whole year?
Do I just get the soda fountain and just buy the syrup? Is that what I'm doing?
It's like I'm a prepper, but instead of actually getting anything important, it's just for seasonal sodas that I don't get the chance to drink on a regular basis.
I'm well stocked on 0-calorie soda. That's about it.
I still think do you remember Livewire? Like the Mountain Dew Livewire?
I vaguely remember Livewire.
That's like
yes.
the orange one. I think that's also seasonal as well too. I just feel like terrible when I'm talking about like sodas and how much I love them, but it's
all right. There's no sugar in it. It's just aspartame, but that shit's gonna keep you alive till you're 108.
Yeah, because it's preserving my insides.
Yeah, it's just gonna calcify all your insides, and you're gonna live forever. So whatever.
Exactly. Let's go. Just a plan, baby.
Speaking of living forever, that's kind of going to seamlessly segue us into our very spooky Halloween themed episode.
Ooh.
As you know, I am a man who loves himself some creepy and some spoopy. A lot of, real ambiotic horror. And I think I've got just what we're looking for a Halloween themed episode here.
Okay. Let's hear it.
And hopefully, by the time this comes out in the near future, and hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll get some more from this creator. But this is one of my all-time favorite analog horror series. Are you familiar with analog horror at all?
No, not really. I can't say.
Okay, so it's a style of horror that plays on the analog style of like the 80s and 90s. So there's a lot of like old VHS tapes and grainy security feeds and playing on 80s and 90s technology and things like that.
Okay, so yeah, now you explain. Okay, yeah, I'm aware of. I'm at least aware of it.
Right. So it's been a big thing on YouTube, and that's where this episode's going to take us, is to YouTube. with a Chilean creator by the name of Martin Walls, and his creation is called the Walten Files. Leave it
Mm,
in.
okay.
So it's something that I've become really like obsessed with over the past couple of months as I've sort of embraced this whole spooky future and way that I've lived my life since the pandemic started and getting into the really spooky stuff. But I think it's really well done, especially for like a single guy who's basically working on it all by himself. And it tells the story of Jack Walton and Felix Kranken. These are two individuals who started a burger chain called Bond's Burgers, and heavily inspired from Five Nights at Freddy's, they have a group of animatronics, and some things happen to these individuals, and this is sort of their story as it plays out. I think it does a really great job of setting the ambiance and getting you invested into the story while also not really succumbing to those common horror tropes, right?
Hmm.
Cheap jump scares. Everything that's done is kind of planned and very methodical. Like you'll know when something's coming more often than not, but even when you don't, it's not done as like a cheap, high pitched violin build up and then jump scare. It's something that'll it's something that'll make sense, right?
Hmm. Okay.
So it's three parts as of right now, and I know the creator has posted numerous times that he's sort of figured out. I guess he had some sort of licensing agreement with another firm, and there was a dispute between the two of them, so he wasn't able to publish new material for the project.
Hmm.
I think that's done now, so hopefully we get some in the near future. But there are three main parts that are canon, quote unquote, and then there's a ton of other one, two, three, four, five, six, seven other shorter clips that are non-canon, but will likely tell a story that relates to the canon work. So, I mean, just based on the three canon entries, I mean, you're looking at about like a 2 hour watch time, maybe an hour and a half.
Okay.
But everything together kind of totals out to about 2 to 3 hours, maybe a little more than that. But I think it's just wonderfully done. I think it's super creative in a world where so many people, both gaming and in media, have been inspired by this franchise, this Five Nights at Freddy's franchise.
Hmm.
I think the Walton Files does a really great job of being its own entity while also like doing something a little bit different as far as horror is concerned. And I can't tell you how well I think this is done, and I hope to see more of it real soon.
Word. Yeah. Yeah. Like. I'm a fan. It's weird to say this, right? I'm a fan of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, right? Even though I've never actually played any of them, I watched a lot of content around it.
It's
And
hard not to, right? Especially when
it's hard
people
to.
have these
Yeah, it's hard to get away from.
right, these super deep dive 1 hour, 2 hour long videos on all things about Five Nights at Freddy's. Like that's kind of where I started, right? I went down the rabbit hole
Mm.
mid pandemic, and then it kind of branched out to this from there. And I mean, look, I played the games. I've listened to all the Matt Pat videos. I've watched basically everybody's theory videos on this game, and yeah, but it's easy to get sucked in and enjoy everything without actually having played the games.
Yeah, like I've never played a single one of them, and like I've just enjoyed just watching along and kind of learning of the world and the story that they've built around it. Right, that's like not even like directly related to the game, or by like adjacently to it. Right.
Right.
A
So it's
lot of.
not like explicitly stated in the games. A lot of it is the built around just like random little lore bits and things that like nobody would ever know just from playing the games regularly, right? You have to go find these hidden mini games or hidden lore bits in the source material and all this other crap. But yeah, like I think I think the fans have done their part in building out this community and building out the story even more than the creator has.
Okay. Yeah, like again, I don't really know a lot of it myself. I guess in terms of like the expanded stuff, because again, I've mostly just watched the YouTube like content around the game specifically, and that's really about it. And like mostly reaction stuff, right, and a little bit of explanation. But yeah, it's not really my type of content. I just watch it and don't really play it. But yeah, again, I'm interested in like the world that's been built around it. So yeah, I'm excited for this. So you said this is a watch thing, right? About 2 hours of content
Right,
or so.
yeah, it's just a couple of YouTube videos on the creator's YouTube page.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm down to get into it. Why not? Perfect time for some spoopy content anyway. So let's go.
Well, I mean, it's not like you have a choice. I mean, we have to do the show,
Yeah,
so
true. This is content, so I guess you have to do this anyway, no matter what.
yeah, if you want this to keep going, you gotta kind of
I
you
gotta,
gotta do it.
yeah, I gotta
But
play
like I
along.
said, it's not going to take you long, and it'll get you right into the season here.
Word. Yeah, it's
So for those of you
perfect timing.
sitting at home and watching and listening, we appreciate it. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz here. Um, we'll be back in about a week or two after Lakan has enjoyed the Walten Files or not. At the very least, he's watched them. And for you guys, it'll be just a short break. So we'll see you on the other side.
See ya.
That's not a death pun, by the way.
That's your pun.
All right, folks, it's been a little bit of time. Lakan, what do you think of the Walten Files?
So I remember when we started going into this, you were mentioning specifically, what's the term you use? Analog horror for this. So like,
Analog horror,
yeah.
correct.
So I don't really watch or like read into a whole lot of analog horror stuff personally. I mentioned before that I was a big old baby when I was a kid, and then now as an adult, my brain, like, because of like kind of like as a defense mechanism to being like scared easily when I was like young, now I end up over analyzing stuff. My brain went like not like hard in the sense of like it just had to analyze everything here. It had a hard time, and I actually had a hard time keeping up with everything during this little time with the Walton Files. There was some.
Oh, yeah, no, there's a lot happening.
There's a
So I don't
lot.
blame you one bit.
Yeah, there's very a lot. And I had to watch like the first episode. I was able to kind of like just kind of get into and just kind of chill and watch it. The second episode, I was starting to have trouble keeping track of names and like who's attached to who kind of deal, like in terms of like the oh, we should probably mention spoiler alert if you're not looking into.
Yeah, I think by now, if you're still sticking around and you haven't watched this and you don't want to be spoiled by anything, I think it's a good time to hit pause and watch through this stuff. I mean, it probably takes what, maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours to watch through everything.
About ish. Yeah, I mean, in terms of just the content around the main Walton Files is like episodes, basically, right? So there's the what is it? There's the training video kind of deal, and then there's like
Right.
the kind of like information and about the people who went to, like, I guess you can call it a bunker, I guess, like a warehouse, right? And then that's like episode that's mostly most of episode 2, and then the last episode being Bunny Farm, right? Which
Right. That's the game
which is like the game, yeah, kind of like
gameplay. Right.
gameplay kind of thing, but like it's glitching out because it's trying to converse with the I guess I don't even know. Can we even really call him a
Sophie.
protagonist? I don't know. Can we really call him a protagonist? I guess, or just the main character?
Yeah. No,
Basically,
I think she's a protagonist. I think
so Sophie, yeah,
she's a good character. I
yeah.
think.
So, but yeah, like my brain was trying to like analyze things, but not because I was particularly scared or anything, but because I had to keep track of everything that was going on in this game in regards to like characters, like the human characters, workers, like the family tree, so to say, right? Like of like
Oh
the people
yeah.
who like who started Bond's Burgers, right, and then created the animatronics, right, and then then the families of those people as well too. I got a little bit lost. I started watching episode 3 and I was like, okay, I need to actually like be awake to watch this because I would watch them after I got home from work. So I'm just like, my brain's kind
Which
of
is the perfect time to watch horror.
my brain just super fried. I'm like, who's who again? I just missed something, didn't I? Okay, hold on, let me rewind that back again. which is the best way to watch horror. Just like, oh, I missed something. Fuck. Okay, roll it back. It's like where it just became like a slog and no longer fun for me just to watch it. But like when I finally like got through it to like actually watching on a day that I didn't feel like complete garbage, I got to sit down and like really watch a bit more of it. And yeah, like one thing I didn't hate though. I didn't hate it. Like that's gonna be. Let me just start that off right off the bat. Didn't hate it. Again, it's kind of like I don't really do a whole lot of horror stuff. I don't really do
Right.
a lot of analog horror stuff. Like I know stuff that kind of does stuff like this, right? I'm trying to remember the other one that like is like really really popular because I've actually seen this guy's like YouTube channel before. Like
Right.
I've seen the image that he uses for his profile, like for his YouTube channel. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't know where I've seen this, but I've definitely seen this. So like, it might have been one of those things where I'm just on YouTube and I just fall down the rabbit hole one day of like randomly searching through shit, right? And I might have ended up here, and then I like started
Hmm.
watching one. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. Click off and then move about my day, right?
Right. So the other one that I know a lot of people have talked about is Local 58, which is like a basically it's a series of videos that look like old news reports that are like hijacked, and it's about like aliens and extraterrestrial beings basically. The other two are the Mandela Catalog,
That
which is
one,
all
I
about
I've like gone down and like watched a little
mhm.
bit of. Okay,
Mandela Catalog's also great, and I do also enjoy that one. That one has a lot more of like a religious undertone to it, and it's also really creepy. I mean, he does a great job. His name's Alex Kister. He's the guy that makes that, and
mm,
I thought that was really well done. The last one is Gemini Home Entertainment, which is a series about another one where it's like extraterrestrials come to Earth, and the story's all told through VHS tapes.
gotcha. Okay. There's I'm assuming, but I'm gonna ask you guys. Are you aware of the back rooms?
Yeah, so the Backrooms is another one of the kind of like these. I think you could call this analog horror
Yeah,
too.
yeah, because like a lot of like the backroom stuff that I see again, had to look up the term for like analog horror, right? Is so it's like anything that kind of like it's like in regards to like found footage, right? It's like a offshoot from like found footage film, right? And it's like
Right. Think of it like found footage in the 80s and 90s,
yeah,
basically.
yeah,
So it's in that era where we didn't have a lot of digital media, right?
hmm
A lot of it was on either standard definition television, VHS tapes, cassettes, things like that. And I know there's a whole generation of kids watching this that are like, what are they talking about?
yeah, yeah. Don't remind me how old we are.
But no, so I like the aesthetic, and Walton Files kind of called to me the most, I guess, just because I do enjoy sort of the whole haunted children's restaurant character kind of thing. Just because also character costumes really freak me out
Oh,
after I
really?
was oh yeah, I had a real bad experience as a kid with a Big Bird costume when I was like a year old,
Huh?
and I always feel a little uneasy around character costumes. So I think it kind of you know taps into that mythos a little bit more.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed the Walton Files, and I also thought it was kind of like a quick watch. And so that's kind of why I gave it to you here
hmm
versus the other ones that are a little bit longer. Like Mandela Catalog is uh multiple chapters. Gemini Home Entertainment's more chapters than this. Local 58's like insane. I think God, I don't even know how many chapters Local 58 is at this point. Let me look. I know Local 58's over. Oh, it's only 2, 4, 6, 8, 9.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have give you that one,
Okay.
but I just kind of connected to this one the most,
hmm
the Walton Files, and so that's kind of why I wanted you to enjoy it as our spooky episode.
Spoopy. Yeah, I mean, like, it's cool. Like, once I started like kind of falling down into like getting really like acclimated with like the world being built around it, right? So like the first episode, was what was the name of the first episode? I forgot the name of it already. I should probably have it here in my notes actually.
Yeah, so should I. I just know it as that's the opening
The
where it's like
company
the
introductory
tape.
tape. Yeah, there it goes. That
Yeah.
one. It started off like kind of like how every kind of creepy-ish. Like again, from my understanding, this is kind of like okay, kind of one of the standards, I guess, of like watching this type of like content, right? The analog horror stuff, where it's like, yeah, okay, cool, very much so pulls me right back into that like 19 like 80s 70s really like older VHS stuff where like there's a lot of like flickering and scan lines happening because of
Right, you
the
have like the cheesy audio, the cheesy like stock music that plays you in, a lot of cheaply done animation. Oh, welcome to the best day of your life, starting
yeah
your new job at your new company
yeah so like
that you're going to love.
that production quality and style obviously while being very intentional made me feel very nostalgic, right? Because again,
Right.
we grew up in like the 90s, right? So we like there absolutely still was material like this, growing up.
Oh yeah, and
Um,
even especially if you ended up working for a company that was cheap. I mean, I remember working for Champ Sports, subsidiary of Foot Locker, and our training tape, even in 2007, was still on VHS.
oh, there you go.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I was exposed to this as somebody who worked for a company. So like it's funny for me to sit and watch knowing that I've been through it, but it wasn't this level of, you know, production value. Yeah, it wasn't to this. It was a little bit more contemporary than this one was,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not by much.
I don't think I ever had a job where I had the training video. Luckily, I was able to get away with just
Yeah,
going straight.
praise the sun on that
Yeah,
one, man.
going straight into actually doing stuff. Regardless if I hated the job or not.
They
Um,
suck.
so like as soon as I started the company introductory tape, yeah, let's call it episode one, right? So as soon as I started
Right.
one, about 3 minutes into the video, I was like I was like really starting to like trying to get into it. I was like, I'm turning off the lights. Let me just get in here. And I was like, let's get spoopy, baby. And then I ended up just kind of watching it and like the audio warping and stuff like that, and like really helps to like set the mood, and again it works in a way to create like unease, right? Um, especially like I mean, obviously I'm going into here knowing what I'm watching, right? I'm
Right.
knowing I'm going. I already kind of have an idea of the subject because you explained that it is meant to be like a horror thing, right?
Right.
And a lot of like movies and other 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 media uses like this retro aesthetic as well, having something with like grainy footage and scan lines and kind of like it was like, oh, it's this thing that like no one found forever ago, and here we are watching it now, right? And it kind of creates like, oh, why did no one find it now? And then it makes you feel like a little bit uneasy, especially if like you're not like used to it, right? For me, it's like nostalgia, but I'm sure for like a lot of other people, like, whoa, like it can be like annoying, or it can be like, again, like why did this just get found out now, right? And especially like I mentioned it, I just mentioned it, but it's like the audio warping, right? There's actually a whole series that I watched forever ago on like just like YouTube 3 a.m. down the rabbit hole kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like I listened to about like how audio warping or audio manipulation is like a big thing for that scares a lot of people, right? Playing stuff backwards because it doesn't sound like anything or possibly sounds like something else, right?
Right.
Back in the day when people would play records backwards to look for like hidden messages in there, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Because
like
that was something they had access to and the technology for, right?
yeah, exactly. That was still like, and that was like all the like during the satanic panic, right? That, and like people were like, oh, people are like hiding like satanic messages in our music, and they're trying to corrupt the population and the children, right? They're like, that's one of those things. I'm like, oh yeah, this is very similar to that, where it does feel uneasy. You're like listening extra to see if there's something hidden in the audio warping, right?
Right, or you have to take this thing into your audio editing
Run
profile
it backwards,
or yeah, audio profile program. I keep saying profile
yeah,
and flip it, right? So you
yeah.
can listen to what the person or what the character is trying to say reversed,
Yeah, and
and play it the right way.
and unfortunately, I'm a memer, so all I do now is bass boost everything. And
Correct.
that's all I do now for audio. And I'm hoping there's some message in there, or I can use it as an audio clip for my next song.
If you can sample this into your next song, that would be the funniest thing
That
ever.
would be kind of fun, right? I'm sure there's a way to do it as like kind of like a background audio thing, and then you kind of lead into something. I think that'd be kind of fun.
I'm
But
sure there's some shit posty part of this. I'm sure this community. I only have gotten into the Walton Files community just based on not just the series, but there's also a website that we'll talk about a little later, probably
mm.
once we're done talking about the videos. But yeah, I haven't really gotten into the shitpost meme culture of this fandom yet,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm sure it exists because it's an online fandom.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely. I didn't get into any of that stuff as well myself. Again, I was kind of like mostly sticking to the materials you had provided for me, including the videos themselves, going onto the Martin Wells' YouTube channel, and then like some analysis video essentially, right?
right.
So yeah, there's like they so like in terms of like the setting the mood for this stuff, right? Like again, there's pieces of music, there's the YouTube deep dive at 3 a.m. like looking into why it makes people feel uneasy.
Hmm.
And basically it's like the idea is that like something about not hearing or seeing things properly, right? So including like watching the videos where like is that a flicker, you know what I mean? Especially like do you remember like it's kind of like a thing, but like if you watch like an old movie that's still on film, right? There's that little like a little black circle that'll flicker onto the screen for like
Right, little
one frame.
blotches and
Yeah,
things.
and
Yeah,
so I remember being told when I was younger, like, oh, that's so that the person who's running the film knows that the film is like on screen properly, right?
right.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, but when you're younger, like, what was that? What was that? Did I miss something? You know what I mean? You're freaking out. You're paranoid, especially if you're watching something
Hmm.
scary, right? Um,
What was behind that blotch? What are they hiding
yeah,
from
and
me?
like, nope, it's literally a technical thing. Like the person directing playing back the footage needs this for their own reference, and then yeah, something about again like something not hearing things or seeing things running properly yet not but running but not perfectly makes the watcher or listener wonder if something is wrong, right? That's kind of one of those things that like that's kind of like one of those things I noticed about like the whole analog horror thing, right? Like things are working not relatively okay for the most part then, but when something starts not being all there, it can create like a sense of unease basically for the person for the person watching or listening along.
Right. I think that is something that analog horror does really well, right? Because especially in a digital age where every image is crisp and all the audio is recorded well, and you have high technology that far surpasses anything from 30, 40 years ago. Being stuck on a camcorder with a cruddy microphone, or something's not well lit, or the audio's not processed correctly, does create an air of unease when it comes to horror, and just creating an unsettling aura about the the project that you're watching, or the media that you're watching. And I think that's what Walton Files does really well is unease. The jump scares aren't really jumpy because they're very well telegraphed, but it does convey a great sense of unease to the viewer, and that's what I love about this. And that's kind of the horror that I sort of gravitate towards, is sort of that atmospheric horror versus the cheap jump scare with the hitting the violins on the high notes on the violin, right?
The sting, yeah, the audio sting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is, you say that, but I think they did a pretty good. Like again, if you call it a good Jeep jump scare, but I mean, let's call it a jump scare regardless. But like, it's like the thing is with the jump scares in this one, for me anyway, is because the fact that there would be like a longer extended scene where like it would just sit on that screen or that image for a little bit longer than expected, right? And then
Yeah.
it would pop up. It was like, oh shit, like, I would be watching it, and it was like, the fuck was that? Like, like go back to it that I missed something beforehand that was prepping for that. And I was like, oh no, just like it was just again, it was meant to sit there on purpose. It was playing with like the pacing, the tempo, right, of the video basically, or like the of what was happening on screen. That's what creates, even if it is like a much smaller in comparison jump scare, right? It's still like it's doing a good job of messing with like the pacing that you're expecting. Like it shifts back and it shifts like your expectation much later than initially expected for
Mhm.
a lot of them.
And
And
I think a lot of the things that Walton Files does well in that regard is when you have these little Bond segments and he's doing all these cute little things like, oh, he's having a sleepover, or oh, he's getting his backpack ready, and it's like it's going through the steps and then the audio just cuts and Jack Walton pops up, right?
yeah,
And you get like that creepy moment. It's like, oh,
yeah. It's like, get the fuck out,
that's basically what it did for me. It was always just like,
get off my screen. Like,
yeah, it's like, get out of here.
and it's funny because you mentioned before you had a like a fear or like a bad experience with like people in like big old like character suits, right, character costumes and stuff like that.
Correct.
um I like I was trying to dig through like the vaults of my you know ever growing massive brain, of like
Of course.
my memories of like when I was younger and I was like go to Chuck E. Cheese or something, right? Or to Disney or whatever, and like something about animatronics. But like as a kid, I was never thrown off by them, but like I would always see like other kids around me would be scared of them or crying, and
Right. Because I mean,
I never understood it. And I think
they're
I only got uncomfortable around them, and I only got uncomfortable ish around them, and not even like uncomfortable because I honestly like still don't get freaked out by them at all. But it was like someone had to like point it out to me, like they're kind of creepy, right? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like we're talking like I was in like high school, maybe early college at this
right.
point. I was like, they're kind of creepy. And I'm like, I don't get it. They explained it to me, and I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. Still not really. It's like I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but like I think it's more about like especially if you're consuming content around it, especially that like kind of forces it to be a little bit more creepy, right?
Right.
I was more nervous about clowns when I was younger,
Mhm.
and not even like
I get
scared of
that.
them, but it was mostly because of like it's like a trope in movies, right? Where it's like
Right.
it's the psycho clown, ooh, and I was like, yeah, but clowns for the most part are still pretty funny. I still enjoy them. So like
Right.
like I like for me, I know I had friends who were genuinely like actually like scared of clowns. So I was like, I don't get it. Again, kids were crying about the animatronics. I don't get it, but sure, whatever. Be scared of what you want to be scared of. But I think for me, it was never like a trigger of like fear or anything. Basically, because it's like, oh, Chuck E. Cheese, sweet. That means I get to play video games and eat pizza.
Mhm. I think with the animatronics, it's an sort of an uneasy and uncanny valley sort of approach with them because you're dropped into this festive place and you have these creepy jaggedy sort of animatronics, right, that are very robotic in nature, but they seem so lifelike. So they're kind of in the middle of these real live beings while being very obviously machine. And like their eyes move, their mouths move. They can, in certain cases, they can move around on stage. Their arms move. They speak. They sing. Right. I think that might do it for some people, and it's just super weird. Just something's off, right? They're too lifelike to be robots, and they're too robotic to be real life. And I
Mm.
think that's what really drives people up the wall with when it comes to animatronics. And I think that's why you see Five Nights at Freddy's and all of these other animatronic themed horror projects take off the way that they have, and why people really seem to enjoy them is because I think it plays on that childhood sort of uncomfortability with all of these animatronics and costumed characters from our youths. And you add a slap on a horror aesthetic and you've got yourself a really engaging and you know tough project to get through for some people.
Yeah, like again, like for me, like I was never uncomfortable around those things until I was older and someone else had to point it out to me. So
Well,
for
that's great.
even for me, I mean, I'm not scared of anything. But there's also that too. I'm
Uh-huh.
the best. So,
Correct. See,
uh,
that's basically what it is. Splice in the I am so great Bart clip here.
yeah, I got it.
I am so great. I am so great. Everybody loves me. I am so great.
Kind of one of the reasons why I didn't really get into this whole genre of like this whole like animatronic, killer robot type of thing, right?
Correct.
Um, not my like just not my. It's just not like, oh, I was never scared of it. So it's like, okay, maybe that's why I don't really care about it so much. Not even just regarding to this, but like Five Nights at Freddy's or the other what's the other one, Poppy Playtime or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Which I've like so I've never played Five Nights at Freddy's, but I've watched a lot of content around it, and I kind of enjoy it more for like the reaction of the content creator. And Poppy Playtime, I think I've played through. I want to say I've at least played through it once. Um, and it was like, yeah, it's I get it, but I'm not particularly scared of it myself
Right.
because I think just I don't have that associated fear of it since I was younger. If anything, again, for me, just feel more nostalgic than anything else. And
Hmm.
then I ended up grabbing a slice of pizza to watch this thing.
Right.
Um,
For me, I also really love the idea of lost media and seeing things that nobody else has seen. So I think that kind of plays into why I like this stuff so much, is because, oh, it's this hidden this hidden tape, or oh, this lost tape that nobody's found from this company that came and went in a flash, right? Or
mhm.
other sorts of these lost media types of horror stories like Petscop. Oh, the lost haunted game, Crow 64, the lost haunted game, right? I think that's just so cool, and that's so exciting to see these things. And that's even something that I really enjoy, as even in my day job as like a journalist, when you get like pre-release copies of games and you get to see things that nobody else has seen yet.
Mm.
I remember doing something for a friend of ours brother prior to my career really starting in earnest, and I got a review copy of Pokemon X and Y early, right?
Mm.
So there were Pokemon that I saw that hadn't been announced yet, hadn't been released yet, and I was like, wow, this is so sick. Like, this is so cool to be able to be like one of the first people that I know to show off, or to know about this. I just thought that, like, I like that whole concept. So stories like this really resonate with me because I love that, right? Where,
Mm.
you have this media entity that's, even in reality, when it's not like actually something that was lost and is now found, it's just marketed that way. Something, I don't know, something with that just resonates with me, and that's why I really enjoyed the Walton Files.
Something about this, and luckily because again, it's no longer like analog, right? It was like, oh, I can just straight up roll back 5 seconds, like when I was watching through this whole thing. Where I would think I'd miss something because of the flickering on the screen, right? Like because
Right.
of the deterioration of like the film, right? Obviously that's not the case, right? It's done as an effect, and I would feel like, oh, did I miss something? Like sometimes there'd be like a moment of like static, or something would pop up on the screen as like as if something on the film was like deteriorating or whatever. And then I'm like, did I miss something in terms of like I was like I ended up starting like looking for jump scares. You know what I mean? Like just in case I missed something. And especially once I learned that like there was a lot more depth to the material that I was watching, right? There was more than just like an initial thing. It started like kind of like um showing like, oh, there's more stuff around here that just in case you missed it, like you're gonna be a little bit confused. And that's kind of like what I was trying to how I ended up going into the rest of the videos around this whole thing. Whereas like I was like I feel like I'm forgot I feel like I've missed something, so I have to eventually go to like the wiki and like look it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just um and especially something like this that has like a timeline that's kind of confusing early on, right? Because the first three videos are like you don't know if they're like released in order, or if they were kind of like put together in this order, but you have to like kind of create the timeline yourself, kind of deal. Obviously, once you watch more and more, the timeline gets a little more fleshed out, and then everything kind of sits into place a little bit easier and easier to track, basically, for everything
Mhm.
else.
The
Um,
thing that also doesn't help is that there are supposed to be hidden and unlisted videos throughout this that
yeah,
would add more color to the story, but after a while, I guess the creator took them down. And so the only way is if you're watching like a retrospective or a review, or like a film theory, right? Like a Matt Pat film theory video that has captured these videos. That's the only way to know, number one, that they even exist, and then
yeah.
number two, what they actually entail. And so that kind of hurts these days, because even when I got into it and I found the videos, right, they were already gone. And this is basically like a year ago, I want to say. I
Okay.
got into this. It was whenever GT Live and Film Theory and MatPat put it on my radar. That was when I got into it, and even by then, it was gone.
Mm.
Right, so I understand. Like, I get it completely, and that's kind of why I gave you the retrospectives, to kind of help you understand the story a little better. But sometimes, and every once in a while, with a lot of this stuff with confusing lore, you're gonna have to just look at the wiki sometimes, and that'll help.
Yeah, yeah. Again, like I ended up doing so just in case I missed something. Like I had
Right.
to at a certain point. Like another comment before I forget, we start moving on to like we're talking more about the bunny farm a little bit more. In
Right,
terms of the
yeah.
old, yeah. Ashley's dumb. I think her name is Ashley in the second one.
Yes.
In the Relocate Project. Like she's literally like the embodiment of like a horror movie like character. Like, don't do this. I'm gonna go do this. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you dumb bitch. You deserve to die. Like you're so stupid. Like you're such a dumb character.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
um,
agree completely.
yeah, like because that was the Relocate Project was like 4 tapes, right? Basically, right? I think that one.
Right. So that basically tells the story. That's the second Walten Files, which basically tells the story of them taking all of these animatronics from the first location and literally relocating them into a new one.
Yes.
But it doesn't really work out because they're all possessed, and they end up killing the individuals trying to relocate them.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so like that one was a little bit longer, I think it was in terms of video. Again,
Right.
there's more content, and I'm assuming that that in regards to when they were making the content, right? Martin basically like had more material that he had like kind of jogged down. He's like looking to expand on everything, right? Um, yeah, like I had to watch this one like 2 or 3 times to really start like piecing together like the timeline.
Hmm.
And this is when I started having a little bit more of an easier time going about it because obviously there's more content, so you're able to start like fully fleshing out everything else through the conversations that are having in the video. um, you know, and especially and even more so, uh, even more so about like in Bunny Farm, like where they start going through like actual dates and times and conversations between people,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a big lore heavy episode. Even in an hour runtime, like that thing fits a lot in. It is very
Yeah,
well paced and very methodical in its
like
approach.
I like one thing I had to like mention to like myself, and I wrote the note down here is like it's pretty tight. Like the story is
Yeah.
pretty tight, even though like obviously you're piecing it, we're still piecing everything together, right? There's still supposed to be like 2 more videos of this coming out, I think.
Right. So the apparently it's supposed to come out soon
Yeah,
too,
like timing's perfect
which is
for
exciting.
yeah. And for I don't know what Martin Walls, right? Yeah, Martin Walls is
That's the
experiences
creator.
in terms of like of writing or whatever, but like for the most part, like, pretty tight writing. Like
Yeah. Very
for
well done.
a guy I've like only, never really heard of, if I guess if I'm gonna use that as
Hmm.
my benchmark, right? Not a great benchmark, but it's
Right.
there, right? For a guy who I've never like really watched any of his other work. It's like, oh, the writing's pretty tight. And I've never like, looked up if they've done like if they've written like screenplays or whatever. You know what I mean? So like, yeah,
Right.
it's pretty. Everything lines up pretty well. And especially once pieces are, especially in regards to like how they're allowing the listener or watcher to like piece everything together, right? Um,
Yeah, I think he does a good job of keeping things tight and keeping things moving, while also giving you all the information that you'll need for the most part on the major, you know, reveals of the story, and the major um like the major events of the story, right?
Yeah. So after watching the second again, so after I had to watch the second video a couple times just to like make sure that I was fully understanding what the hell was actually happening.
Right.
Especially and again, it's mostly for like a lot for myself, like so I can start properly creating and understanding the timeline of this whole thing, right?
Hmm.
And then after I've got a couple watches out, I went into Bunny Farm. which was a little bit different in terms of like I guess the medium, right? Or because it went from VHS tapes to a video game, and
Right. So it's basically a let's play in the beginning where the character of Sophie is playing a Bonds Burgers video game called Bunny Farm. And it's an old arcade game that I guess she finds or is presented to her somehow.
yeah, I forgot how it. I forgot how.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how she gets in touch with it, but she does, and she's playing it with alongside a friend, and yeah, so that it's the whole story of that.
I think it was her girlfriend.
Yeah, Jenny is
Yeah,
the character's name.
I think they're in a relationship from what I was piecing together, reading into more stuff afterwards.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it starts the video game, like them talking about like, oh, here's how you have to get in here. You know, here's your save files, and here's your your name up here, kind of
Mm-hmm.
deal. And basically just starts off playing, and like the game's like kind of playing normally for the most part, right? And then it starts like
And it
uh
definitely starts talking to her. It
yeah,
starts trying to
yeah,
communicate with her, like all good creepy lost video games do.
yeah,
Especially when they're made by your family as a message to you.
yeah.
And you come to find out that she is the one. As the series goes on, you start hearing the animatronics start saying things like you start to remember that old day. You start to remember, right? It's about trying to remember events from your past, and so it's urging Sophie to remember an event from her past, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
so that event turns out to be the deaths of her siblings, right?
yeah, twin siblings, I believe.
Right. So, and you sort of learn also why the company breaks up, why Jack Walton goes missing, which, by the way, one of the founders goes missing. I don't think we talked about
Oh
that.
yeah, I don't think we ever did.
Yeah. So, all right, let me kind of run through the storyline real fast, and feel free to put this in the beginning or leave it here, whatever.
No, we'll leave it here.
So,
Just this is literally how our brains work. We started just talking and like, wait,
right,
we never explained what actually
exactly.
happened to this thing.
Right, just like everybody else, just like everybody wants to listen to us ramble and get to this point organically, right? So the Walten Files is a story of a company called Bonds Burgers, and it tells the story of its two founders, Jack Walton and Felix Kranken, right? Two guys who meet in college and have the weird same dream of starting an animatronic themed burger restaurant, right? So come to find out, a few years in, when the restaurant's due to launch or already launches, one of its founders, Jack, goes missing. We don't know why. We don't know what's going on. So Felix is in charge. He tries to open up a new restaurant and it fails. You come to find out in Bunny Farm that Felix is a heavy drinker. He's an alcoholic, and Jack asks Felix to pick up his kids from the school dance. And Felix says, sure. Felix gets tanked before. He picks up the kids. When he's driving them home, he gets into an accident or something happens and the kids die. Jack, I guess, in his grief, goes missing. We don't really know what happens to Jack. Everyone in this family either starts to go missing. It's heavily implied that their spirits and or their rotting bodies are inside the animatronics from the restaurant. And Bunny Farm is trying to unlock Sophie Walton's memories from that in order to put the rest of the pieces together, find out what happened to her dad, and set things right, right?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, that seems like a pretty tight wrap up of like what's
Right.
happened so far.
And I like we mentioned, Bunny Farm is really heavy handed with a lot of the information that we just talked about, and puts a lot of the lines from parts 1 and 2 that are, at first just kind of sound like creepy throwaway lines, right? That are like, oh, they're watching you, oh, you have to remember, right? The typical horror tropes that come
Hmm.
up, and it's like, oh, you have to remember. But it makes sense when you realize that all of them are aimed at this person who holds the key to a lot of this, right? So
Yeah,
I think that's really well done, and I think 3 is really where everything kind of ties together and really starts to come into its own. I appreciate the lengthy, episode, not just because I prefer to watch these things in longer chunks, right?
Hmm.
Especially if I have them on while working or what have you. But I also like it because he fits so much into this. And
Yeah.
while it's not, hey, this is what's happening, there's not a lot of exposition. You can, a lot of it's just put on screen and you can interpret it, but there's just a lot of information that you get visually and audioly, right?
Or,
Audio, is that a word? Audio,
orally,
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 or, or
aural, orally.
orally. Okay, today
Yeah.
I learned.
Make sure you clarify oral versus oral. Oral.
Yeah. We'll put it in the description.
Yeah.
Uh,
We're just gonna have the word oral written in the description.
yeah, we'll put the Webster's dictionary definition for this word in there.
Yeah.
Uh, but he, like we talked about, he fits a lot in this episode, and it's awesome. And I think, this was kind of like the perfect episode to go into like this extended break that ended up happening out of necessity. I don't really, I still don't know the story as to what happened. I know he had some sort of a dispute with some sort of a financial backing platform that was keeping the series going.
Mm.
But this was the perfect episode to have an extended long cliffhanger break, because whenever Walten Files 4 drops, it's going to be awesome.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's good that you're excited for it. I mean, I guess at this point, since I've already kind of like consumed the first 3 bits of it and watched some analysis, I might as well see how the rest of it plays out.
Right.
I guess I'm in at this point.
I pulled you in.
Yeah.
So basically, to go back to what we were talking about and get back on track here. So Walten Files 3, Bunny Farm, is basically a let's play of the game, right? Sophie and Jenny are there playing the game, and you start to kind of put the pieces together of who the animatronics are meant to represent. So you have like Boozu the ringmaster, who's like the head cheese basically of this whole operation. It's heavily implied that this guy is Charles, who is sort of like the financial backer to Jack and Felix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of starts to, again, sort of like put these pieces together and call out to Sophie to solve the mystery of her father's disappearance, to right the wrongs of her siblings' deaths, and solve this family mystery once and for all. And I think, and again, like especially like the last like 15 minutes or so are a trip. I think they're the best 15 minutes in the series, to be honest with you. Granted, there were only about 22 minutes between the first 2 episodes put together, but I think the last 15 minutes of Bunny Farm are incredibly done, especially even outside. Even if this was like a motion picture, it would be incredible. But for this to be on YouTube for free is mind blowing to me. And I like I said, I think this could end up this whole fiasco that Martin Walls is going through could end up being a positive thing, because it ended so strongly. And I can't hype this up enough. I can't wait for part 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, it definitely started like really picking up pace. After what, maybe 15-20 minutes or so, like after the game started really glitching out the first time, right?
Right, exactly. So once you start getting the messages to Sophie, right, about at like the 13-14 minute mark of Bunny Farm, you start getting like those blips, and the game starts kind of talking to her directly. I think it is definitely, like you said, when it starts picking up. And then about halfway, 20-25 minutes in is when it all hits the fan and you start getting a ton of lore reveals. And then again, the last 15 minutes is just a trip when you find out what happens and how the relationship between Felix and Jack deteriorates. It's wild, man. Like
Yeah.
to go from the first two episodes to this one and just the roller coaster. I think this is actually the reason why I wanted you to watch this, because I thought this was just such a roller coaster, up and down and side to side. And I think this is what sets the Walton Files apart from all the other analog horror series out there. I don't think the others have this crescendo that builds to this moment quite like Bunny Farm does.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, again, I've never watched any other content, or not as much of the other content, basically, right? I know a little bit. I mentioned, or I recognize some of the other names you mentioned
Hmm.
before. But yeah, like again, like the writing in this is really tight. Like it really is for something that's just like on YouTube out there for everyone to watch for free, basically, right? And it does do a good job of wanting to pull you in as like as the watcher. Like you want to go down the rabbit hole and try to figure out yourself as well. Like try to piece everything together and kind of form your own understanding of the timeline and all the events that lead up to this big old reveal of again, like Jack being missing and like just the death of Sophie's siblings and all this other stuff. And it's like, yeah, it really does like want to pull you in. And you know I have to figure this out now. Now, again, like once I watched this video, I was like, okay. Because initially when I watched this again, I was like, this is an hour, it's a little bit longer. I was gonna try to watch them all on the same day, but because I had to slow down, rewatch episode 2 a couple times, my brain was already like starting to get fried. Because I get home from work, I start watching, and I was like, I need to sit down another day when I'm not tired to watch this. And again, I'm glad I did. I waited an extra day to actually start watching this, and then watch the analysis video on the next day out on that day as well too. Just like starting to hear like uh again, like hearing that the conversation between Jack and Felix, right? And that stuff really like starting, oh, can you help me out kind of deal. And you can tell this, you can tell that Felix is like in a rough spot because he's like he's drinking himself, stupid basically, right?
Right.
And
Hmm.
then he's like, oh yeah, I can do you a favor, drive your kids to the back from the dance. And then he's like, oh wait a second, drinking and driving, that's bad, and something bad's gonna happen here. And then you mentioned before there was like there was an accident, then the death of, their names were Ed and Molly.
Ed and Molly.
Yeah, they're in my notes. I just have to find them. And yeah, it's just like, and then basically their spirits essentially kind of coming together and being stored inside of this. Was it like a rabbit? Is it a doll, or is that an animatronic as well? I'm a little bit confused on this a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's just a doll that they're
Okay.
quote unquote. I guess their spirits kind of go into it, but maybe also into Bon. We don't really know.
Mhm.
Um, so it's funny that you mention figuring it out on your own, right?
Yeah.
Because that also brings us to the next, outside of the other non-canon quote unquote entries, which maybe we'll talk about, maybe we won't. I don't really know. I don't think there's much there, but there is a website, and it's called findjackwalton.com.
Yep. Yep.
And it's just basically one big creepy ARG type game, not game, but it's like it's just a bunch of random links on a page that I guess provided lore-ish or lore adjacent things for a while, but now it just kind of seems like it's getting ready for the next episode to drop. I'm gonna go ahead and share the link with you here.
Okay. One sec. Pause for a second. My nose is bleeding again.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So give me a second. Let me just clear myself out real quick.
Leave it in.
I mean, because we were talking about my nose bleeding before doing the preamble, so it blew my nose too hard,
Nice.
and like my room is dry. Oh, and before we continue on to more of the exploration of like the website, right? That was
Right.
Find Jack Walton. There was a bit during this is just a dumb random tangent my brain went on. There was a random bit during episode 3, like Bunny Farm, right? Where because they're messing around with like distorting the audio because the game's like glitching out and stuff, right?
Oh,
There,
right.
there was a random bit where there was like audio caught in the middle of like a syllable, there's like a vowel sound going on around like 2150 or so, where like because the audio glitches out. For no one else, it's like, oh, okay, no, it's just a creepy bit. But for me, my brain went to the straight immediate to this sounds like brain power. Like I don't know what the hell it is. But it literally sounds just like it. Like it's just that like kind of little bit because the audio is skipping during that moment. And while it's literally fading into a jump scare, and I found myself like giggling to myself, like as it's literally like fading into like a jump scare or like a weird face distortion deal going on. Yeah.
Right. So there's also a site called findjackwalton.com, and basically it's sort of an additional lore bit filled site that I guess just kind of adds some color. The best way I can describe it is basically, you know how in certain card games, going back to card games, you have cards that are known as win more cards, right?
Yeah.
So like the show and like the YouTube series already gives you all the lore that you need to watch this. FindJackWalton.com is basically just a more lore that, you know, maybe you didn't ask for, but it does sort of give you the I don't know, it gives you a little bit more to look at, and helps you immerse yourself in the series a little bit more. And I think it's cool.
Yeah,
I think it's fun to just walk around, like go through everything and look at all of the look at all the links, and it does kind of set the ambiance, right? And it is a little creepy to go through all of these. And again, you know, it's sort of my thing where it's like, oh, you're on this hidden site that nobody's supposed to know about, right? And here you are going through all of this, and it kind of feels like you're not supposed to be here, even though I guess nobody's really stopping you. It's just a random website for a YouTube web series. But I don't know. Is there something about it that makes you kind of feel like you're on Bunny Smiles Incorporated's um like the secret website made by them, right? I don't know. It's just, it's cool, but you don't need it to. You don't need to peruse this. You don't need to do anything with this. But I just think it's cool little bits here. The one thing I will direct you to is that link I just sent you. There is something really interesting. And if you go to the wiki and you go to the final link in the working link section, findjackwalton.com/name-me. And as of October 15th, it gives you a it gives you the basically the roadmap for the Walten Files.
Oh wow.
And there's supposed to be 12 episodes. The Cyber Fun Tech episode is supposed to be, which would be episode 4, is going to be released in 2022. And it's going to talk about Bunny Smiles Incorporated going through rough times, apparently. Then there's going to be a part 5 episode that focuses more on Sophie. And then there's a bunch of other episodes with random letters interspersed that I'm sure somebody more intelligent than I will be able to put together
and decode.
But we have a little bit of a roadmap here, and that's super exciting because I thought it was kind of going to wrap up at part 4. To know that there's 12 of these, I'm ready. I'm already ready for them to come out, and hopefully we get the new episode real soon, but I just kind of wanted to bring this up for anybody that really ends up getting into this series. There's quite a bit on this Find Jack Walton site that's pretty cool, and I think that anybody who's a big fan of the series will really appreciate all of this.
Random, but I appreciate it. Is there's a puppy at the bottom of the page?
Yeah,
What kind
I
of
like the puppy.
What kind of puppy is that?
That's definitely a golden retriever.
Retriever, right? Okay, I was gonna say.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, like I know you were talking about how excited you were for like how there's more episodes than you thought it was gonna be coming out, but like as soon as I saw the puppy, when I scrolled all the way down, I was like, oh, sick puppy. And I was definitely just staring to this little guy.
The dog is very cute.
It is very
I
cute.
find myself, even though I'm going through all of and this even just says season 1, so there could also be a season 2 and onwards for this, which is also really exciting.
Yeah.
But I also kind of find my way down to this puppy every single time I scroll on this screen. So
yeah, like
I get it
says,
completely.
It says here after Walten Files 6, it says Walten Files C on.
Season 2.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
I get it.
So yeah, that's like after episode 6, then we should be getting season 2. Which is kind of cool. Well, yeah, that's awesome that they have they have the idea of this, or that the blueprint's already kind of set up in place for this thing. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yep. Again, I'm also a really big fan of these ARG things, like these alternate reality games. For whatever reason, I just think they're really cool. And this kind of feels like that, which is also probably why I'm super invested in this series.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's kind of it for the Walton Files. So, as like a nice little bow, I mean, like you said, you kind of enjoyed it. You kind of felt like you were in. There's a new episode coming out soon. Is it something that you enjoyed? Are we still good on only having one episode that has a unhappy ending?
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed. Again, it took me like again a couple of watches to really get myself into this whole thing, and I think I'm not the only person to say this as who has this opinion as well, but so you also sent me the 3 Matt Pat videos, right?
Right.
Also, I actually didn't even know who Matt Pat was. I'm not gonna lie. I've heard the name, but I've no idea who they were. Like I've never because I've watched a couple of like the game theory stuff. Does he? I'm assuming he does all those. Or is it
yes, yes.
Okay.
He is game theory. He is food theory.
So
he is.
So like I've watched a little bit of it, and I've seen like the old picture of him with the long puffy hair comb over, like him clearly much younger.
Right.
Because when I watched the GT live video, I was like, "Is this the same dude?" Then like I was like, "Oh yeah, that's him." Okay, he has a more modern haircut and drip. Honestly, pretty stylish in the GT live.
Oh but, yeah, the theory rare merch is pretty dope.
It's pretty cool merch. But yeah, like so I'm sure I'm not the only person who has this opinion. Again, from a guy who also doesn't really watch a whole lot of it doesn't even have to regard specifically to this actually. But anytime you watch any sort of medium where somebody is able to do more of like a wrap up or analysis of content, right? I find very satisfying. I know a lot of people like will go there because they want their theories confirmed or all this other stuff, right? And more of like a deeper explanation, kind of like wording to kind of it's almost like a sense of affirmation, right? Confirmation for stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy those videos. And again, I appreciated for his video specifically just because he also goes through a pretty in-depth like analysis of like the timeline of events.
Oh yeah, he is very thorough.
As I was literally writing my notes, I'm writing little sidebars in my notepad here. I'm just like, okay, this happened first. This is the date. Okay, next thing. Okay, this happened then. This is the date. Okay, this showed up in part 3, but it gave me the date of something that happened closer to something that happened in part 1. Okay, copy that, paste that up there. You know, so I'm trying to create my own like timeline. And I watch his videos and I'm like, oh, thank God he goes into it because like my brain's already firing on all cylinders and it's struggling.
Right. So imagine all the work he has to do when you don't have a clear timeline of events
to kind of piece everything together for an analysis video.
I'm looking at you, Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much content around that too, right? There's so much content around Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh yeah, go ahead and look up the playlist of just Five Nights at Freddy's videos on Game Theorist.
Yeah, I know about it. I know about it. I was like, oh god, because
I always make the joke that I know when his son's like private school payments are due because there's a Five Nights at Freddy's video that comes out on the main channel.
that's good. That's good. I mean, there's a reason why people like it, right? People like the content and like they like the lore and the story around it, so and it makes sense that it pulls in a lot of people.
Buddy, I click that video the second it gets posted.
Oh, there you go. You're the person. You're the person funding this.
I'm one of them. Hey, I will happily pay for that little boy's
education,
private school education. Hell yeah.
But yeah, like the Mad Pass again. I actually didn't even know. I literally had no idea who he looked like. I had no idea until I actually saw him during the GT Live. Yeah, it just makes he does a very good job of like making sense of it. I think that like there have been like jokes around like the whole game theory stuff, right? I don't know if his content has shifted or not in the past couple years, because again I don't really watch him. Because I watch another theorist content creator by the name of Noggin. I don't know if you ever heard him or not. Loxton?
I have not. No. Okay.
So Loxton or Noggin would do like analysis and of like same kind of game theory stuff, right? Like how fast actually is Sonic? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then he uses like footage found in games and relates them to real life and uses like math and science as well. Like, you know, it's pretty fun. I think if you enjoy MapPat, you Loxton / Noggin's a different style.
Right.
But I think you would still enjoy it because it's just like, oh, it's just dumb, nerdy video game analysis stuff. Like you would never think of it, and then the moment it it pops up into your feed, you're like, you're right. Like this is this random thought that's been gnawing in the back of my head unknowingly for the last 5 years. Why does this happen? You know what I mean? So I was like why do I think they're who are the lizard people in Elder Scrolls? Argonians?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not an Elder Scrolls guy.
Yeah, so like, yeah, I was like, why do the Argonian women have breasts, but even though they're lizard people? It's like, sure, I guess I've been confused about this for the last 7 years of my life. Yeah, I guess I'll go into it. Why not? So, like, again, like, I suggest you also give him a shot for your own watching stuff.
Hell yeah.
I don't think he does stuff on like stuff like this where like he just like this is because what was this game he did? This is movie this wasn't movie theory, right? What was
this is film theory.
Film theory. Okay, yeah, film theory. So you know, I don't think Noggin does stuff like that for film stuff. But MatPat obviously expanded out aside from just video game content. So it makes, you know, it this fits very much so kind of in that ethos of like or that realm of like MatPat's content where it's like heavy analysis stuff, you know, a little bit of speculation, right? And it really works out in terms of like helping people. It also becomes kind of like a hub, right, for people who like really who are really into this content to come together and like talk, right? Like the comment section is just like just
people testing theories and people coming up with theories,
people talking about stuff, and then someone getting dunked on because their theory's terrible. And, I mean, but you know, like it's cool that there's almost like a hub for this, you know, around this content that's like not the wiki, you know, not like a forum site or whatever, and you know, there can be like a pretty relatively like, you know, tame discussion, you know, like there's no just shitting on people in there for the most part.
I also really like when you're like, this pops up and it's like, you know, I've always thought that Sonic didn't go at the speed of light, because the same thing happened to me with a channel called Summoning Salt. I don't know if you've ever heard of this person.
I've heard the name, never watched it. I might have watched like a video like back in the day and like not realized there's Summoning Salt kind of deal.
Right. So he basically focuses quite a bit on speed running and world records and stuff like that. And it's like I get his videos sometimes that pop up, and it's like, you know what? Yeah, I want to watch a half-hour introspective on Mario Kart 64's Frappe Snowland. Like, yeah, like thanks YouTube. I really, you know what? I didn't think I needed that, or I wanted to watch it, but you know what? I do. I want to watch a 30-minute video on Donkey Kong 64's speedrunning world record. you know?
Yeah, man. The algorithm knows us better than we do.
Mm-hmm. And it's all good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to wrap up a couple things that I had to like keep track of just before we wrap up here. When they start doing a lot of the analysis stuff, and again, I wrote this in my notes, and then like there was like the confirmation in the videos of like let's go to Rosemary. I was pick that as a point, I guess, right? So Rosemary's death focused on in tape 3 of the Relocate project, right?
Right.
Where for this bit where she like tried hiding basically, right? Because the animatronics come to life basically, and then she like moves around and gets essentially caught, right? Basically, and gets murdered,
Right, of course.
and then shoved into the sheep.
Shaw the sheep, I think,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, shot the sheep. I think it was. Yeah. One little thing that I noticed it initially during the when I was watching part 2 and part 3, and that's when I started really noticing it, like in other parts of the videos as well, where I was like, oh, they literally just interlace, or like interlace, but they literally overlay the face of the character, like the
Yes.
person over like the animatronic. I'm like, oh, okay,
Correct.
so this person's attached to this person, like quite literally, or
Yep.
like in this
Oh,
person.
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
And that's what makes the Bond Bunny situation so interesting, because you don't get that with him. You can kind of like assume it's Jack, but you can't really assume, especially if the end of part 3 is any indication, because the two kids end up like materializing into Bond Bunny. So I think that's one of the mysteries that still has yet to be solved. And but you're right, it does a really good job of, the series I should say does a really good job of letting you know who's who, while also, hey, just remember, we didn't have this scene with Bond yet, so you don't really know who's in Bond at this very moment.
Yeah. Actually, I actually had a question for you.
Sure.
Are the faces here like AI generated faces?
They look like it, right? I think so. I think this was put together before like Crayon and all of these AI generated images were a thing, but they look like it, right?
Yeah, like
And
or like I mean, there have been they've been around for a while, right? Whereas like because the first episode came out when exactly?
2020.
Okay, and what was the development? Do you know the development of like when the first episode came out?
I don't. By the time I started watching this, all 3 episodes had already been out.
Okay, so let's see. 4/26/2020 is when the first episode came out. So I mean, even before 2020, there was content, or like not content, but it was like there were like apps or like websites you can go to where you can like splice two people's faces together.
Right.
So like that's I'm wondering if that's like something that they did, and then they so that there's no real people in this video. Technically, no one's real in this, right? And then
Right. So
and then they warp the faces a little bit more,
Mhm.
obviously. Throughout
I see what you're saying. I think maybe that is the case, or maybe there are actors tied with this, but I think the warped faces are something that's done in post production, right? Like they're edited images, obviously. But
yeah, because I mean, you could just look
yeah.
at like the full like the straight on picture with Jack Walton, right? His face doesn't fit the hair,
Right.
so it's like that's what I'm saying. Like it might just be one of those things where like, oh yeah, they went to a website, created essentially a fake person
Right.
to use here, using two people's like faces and combining their features, and then like superimposing it onto whatever, right? So like a generic body.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I never really thought of that. I will tell you that I think one of the next great indie horror games is going to use those like Crayon, like AI image editing software to create characters, though, because I think, especially in like the early days, it makes some really creepy looking stuff. Like even if you just type in like woman smiling or man smiling, you'll get some really creepy results.
Yeah,
And I think a game could really use that to great effect.
yeah. It's just one of those things that I think I've noticed it again because they've been doing that stuff like like, oh, what if this celebrity and this celebrity had a baby, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I get that for
So
sure.
it's kind of like something similar along that idea of like tech, basically, right? Where they're kind of creating. You could also create a character without having to worry about
But like rights usage
rights
and
usage, mistaken identity, just in case somebody,
yep.
you make something
Mhm.
about like a serial killer, and then this person happens to be like a doppelganger, like a real
Right.
life doppelganger of this
I
person.
got you. Yeah, I
You
don't
know,
know. That's a good question
yeah. So
for sure.
I'm assuming that's probably the case. That's at least my assumption. That's why I wanted to clarify on it, right?
That's a really good point. I hadn't even considered.
Yeah, like even like Rosemary Walton's like face on photo, right? Her profile photo.
Right,
Like
right.
on the website, it's like, yeah, you can tell that the face is there, the hair, like, but it doesn't match the hair. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, so,
Right.
but then the face also is like, again, sits in this like slight uncanny valley. It's like, is this an actual person? You know what I mean? It's like,
Right. Or was this made on like this person doesn't exist.com, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly like that. That's like I'm like wondering, is just the way that they toy with having these people who like look real but not. You know what I mean? And then
Right, right,
and
right.
then on top of the fact that they're distorting them on top of it in footage, in more so in the videos. I don't think on the website. I'm like kind of clicking through the website a little bit as well. The website looks to be more like, photos of these people specifically, right? It looks to be more not the same. I mean, there's a little bit of it still, but like in terms of like, oh, this looks like a fake article on this person, right? It's like, no,
Correct.
that's just a photo of this person. Like that's basically what they are. There is like this unraveling of like the characters who are involved in the story and who they're attached to, like, quite literally attached to or inside of.
Right,
uh
like you want to get in if you want to get involved in these characters and you want to know their story, it makes sense to make it obvious who's who at this point, especially if the whole story is, oh, these people are embodying these animatronics. Well, who's who? Don't be like FNAF and make us guess who's who, especially if you're going to introduce the characters and give us faces and give us history for these characters, right? It makes sense to show them going into the animatronic quite literally.
yeah, and just want to look at a couple last things here on my end. Oh, no, I noticed this as well. I'm gonna go ahead and close out my web browser at this point, because I think the rest of this point is just my notes now. Again, I was having a hard time remembering names. Might just be me, just because, but it just felt like there was a lot of stuff going on, so I had to keep track of that stuff now. I was able to piece together like Charles was a previous employee who was overlaced with Buzu, so it is implied that
Right.
he's
So,
stuffed inside of Buzu. I was like, okay, got it.
mhm.
So like that's when I started really making the connection. After a while, I just started watching along and stopped taking notes. Okay, so there we go. So at a moment, I did feel like, oh, I'm just gonna watch. I kind of just like let myself kind of go along for the ride instead of trying to be like
I got you. I
analysis,
like that.
which is, that's what I would want, right? I don't want to have to analyze everything that I consume. Watching a movie or TV show, I was like, I don't want to be like, oh
What a
yeah,
what a concept.
yeah, exactly. Just sit down, so just sit back and enjoy it for a little bit, right? And yeah, there was a moment where I did get lost in the story, and so kind of not like lost in the stories and like I had no idea where I was going. But I'm saying like I got I was
Yeah,
in,
you're
I
enthralled
was
in the
in, yeah.
story.
Um, Obviously my brain's firing in the background a little bit to just keep track of who's who, but there's still that.
Oh God, I just looked at my other monitor and Jack Walton's face is just staring at me.
Just
Like,
waiting that you
ugh.
forgot about his tab.
It's the message I sent to you on Discord, and it's just
Oh, okay, yeah. And
which is basically my whole concept and my whole thought of the series is just this guy, Jack.
there was and here's the one note that I was like, I noticed once I started like going into like, looking into to this whole Jack Walton thing. There was a Nicolas Cage Five Nights at Freddy's premised movie.
There were supposed to be, and what is it? A24 is supposed to be doing the actual FNAF movie.
Yeah. So Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, Nick Cage was in one that's kind of like it. There's also that like Banana Splits movie, which I don't really know too much about, but yeah, A24 is supposed to be doing the actual FNAF movie.
Yeah. I saw that was gonna be a thing coming up soon.
Finally.
Yeah, right. I just saw it like, when I was like on Wikipedia, and I was like, wait, how have you not watched this? Like this seems like something we have to watch. What's the name of that damn movie? I saw it, and I should wrote the name down.
Oh, the Nicolas Cage one. I forget the name of it too, but yeah, no, we should probably watch that. It's probably awful, but awesome because it's Nick Cage.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to be in for this one. Yeah, because the official Five Nights at Freddy's movie was announced back in 2015. Wow.
Yeah, it's been in development hell for almost a decade.
In 2018, creators said that finding a good screenplay had slowed them down even more. So, is it Willy's Wonderland?
Willy's Wonderland is the Nick Cage one, yeah.
Yeah, we got to get our hands on this and actually watch this because this sounds just absolutely perfect for our movie nights.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
I'm down.
We gotta watch this. And again, like a lot of people like meme on Nick Cage, but like I don't know, man. I really like watching Nick Cage. I feel like whenever he's actually doing a project, he's in.
Right, and that's the great part about Nick Cage. I mean, we can gush about Nick Cage at some point later, but yeah, no, I agree. I think this is something we need to consume for this. But anything else on Walten Files? We can wrap up here.
Yeah, I think we can wrap up here. Again, like it is a well-paced, surprisingly tight, well-written story on like it, again, in my opinion. There's holes, obviously, right? But there are holes that are intending to be filled, but
Correct.
nothing conflicted. At least nothing egregious that I noticed was egregious of like in terms of like conflict, right? Like I if there might have been, I didn't see it, but from what I've been reading and what I've consumed so far at this moment, this might be one of those things where like yeah, maybe I check back in every once in a while, you know, maybe like once like another couple episodes come out, you know, I'm sure you'll mention it in our group chat.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things like maybe I won't watch it right away, but then like when you know a year or two down the line, it's like oh this thing's finally finished or whatever, right? Or if we're still going for all I know. Okay, sure. I'll watch them. Why not? You know, what I mean? Like because now that I've had like a bit of like a dip my toe into it, it's like I might as well wrap it up. Why not? Right.
Right. Especially because it's not bad, right? In your eyes.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's absolutely not bad. Again, the writing's really tight. So like again, I was surprised. I was expecting it to be kind of like schlocky writing, you know, because like, there's so many people on the internet who like create stuff like this. Obviously, not to the same level of like quality, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm trying to be like a writer, and this is my like idea, and it's like, it's not great, you know. But good for you for being, you know, confident in putting it out there for the world to see and judge. Good for you. You might want to work on it more.
Right,
you know,
I
like,
dig it.
Like, but this was like I really I don't have like a lot of like complaints or like you know criticism of this thing.
Yeah, no, I think it was really well done. I can't wait to see where it goes from here. I hope we get a new episode soon. I kind of hope the new episode drops like the day we put this out.
That'd be fantastic, honestly.
That'd be funny as hell.
I mean, because the thing is, like, again, it's spoopy content, so it would be nice to hope that it comes out around like you know Halloween.
Oh, right around Halloween, right? Which is the whole reason why we're talking about this in October. Right?
Yeah, I mean, unless it's too meta for him, then he's like, no, absolutely not putting this out near
right. I can. Yeah. Also, part of me hopes it's like November 1st. It's like here you go, spoopy content.
He's like, we're over to Thanksgiving already. We're here for America holiday now.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and like I said, if you really want to get deeper into the lore of this story, findjackwalton.com is the place to go. Well, all right, I think that's going to wrap it up for us here, folks. Thanks so much for listening. If you've made it this far, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. If you can, you know, leave us a 5-star review. Let people know that you're really enjoying the work that we do, and we'll see you around. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. They showed off the prototype for Mori Calliope, the Grim Reaper character.
You don't like loot them, huh? You don't loot them either, right?
No, I don't.
You're not a looter type.
No, I'm not like I'm degen, but I'm not that degen.
Right.
Like I just enjoy what they do, and I'm really a fan of them.
Mm-hmm. No, that's like me with Miku.